Have you ever wondered why some people seem to age slowly no matter what they eat? So today, I'll show you how aging is actually controlled inside your cells and which everyday foods quietly slow down that process. And we're starting with the most subtle effect first. Now, what if aging doesn't announce itself with pain or fatigue, but with small signals most people learn to ignore? As you age, some cells stop doing their job properly. So instead of clearing out, they linger longer than they should and release inflammatory signals into the background. And this is where green tea comes in. Its key compound, EGCG, helps calm inflammatory signals and nudges damaged cells towards repair or proper clearance. And when that signaling settles, the internal environment becomes less hostile, allowing healthier cells to function without constant stress. That's why populations associated with longevity, such as in Okinawa, treat green tea as a daily habit rather than a quick boost. And not because one cup creates a dramatic effect, but because consistent intake shapes how cells behave over time. The result? Lower oxidative stress, clearer signaling, and a slower drift into the inflamed, rundown state many people accept as normal aging. So green tea isn't about feeling anything dramatic. It's about keeping small damage from turning into long-term momentum. And that's probably why most people overlook it, because it doesn't come with a buzz or a story you can post on social media. But calming things down is only the beginning, because once inflammation keeps increasing, the real damage happens when it's allowed to stay high. Which brings us to the next piece. So, what if aging isn't speeding up because your body is breaking down, but because inflammation never really shuts off in the first place? Well, chronic inflammation doesn't just make you sore or stiff, but quietly accelerates aging in your brain, your joints, your metabolism, and even your mood. And what actually turns down that signal is turmeric and its active compound, curcumin. And it does a fantastic job by blocking a major inflammatory control switch in the body, known as NF-kappa B. When that switch stays on, cells stay stuck in damage control. But when it turns down, repair finally gets room to take over. Curcumin also supports BDNF, a protein that helps keep the brain flexible, sharp, and capable of forming new connections as you age. That's why curcumin keeps showing up in studies on joint health, cognitive aging, and mood. But here's the catch most people miss. Curcumin on its own absorbs poorly, but when it's paired with black pepper, which contains pepperin, absorption can jump up by a whopping 2,000%. And traditional cuisines figured this out long before supplements ever existed. But calming inflammation is just half the battle, which is why the next step is helping your body clear it out instead of just managing it on the surface. Now, let's be honest. If something doesn't taste good and it doesn't make you feel anything right away, how long do you usually stick with it? As you age, your detox and repair pathways slow down, and that means toxins linger longer, oxidative damage stacks up, and cells spend more time reacting instead of restoring balance. Well, this is where broccoli sprouts enter the picture, since they contain a compound called sulforaphane, which activates a master regulatory pathway known as NRF2. When NRF2 turns on, your body increases its ability to neutralize toxins, manage oxidative stress, and supports the repair of cells at the genetic level. In a 2018 study from Japan, people who consumed broccoli sprouts showed significantly higher clearance of pollutants, allowing their bodies to eliminate toxins more efficiently. And interesting enough, the sprout itself matters because broccoli sprouts can contain up to 100 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli. So broccoli sprouts aren't a superfood you feel right away. They're just a signal that tells your body to stop procrastinating and start cleaning things up, which probably explains why they never became popular in the first place. Because if they tasted amazing, people would already be calling them a hack. But clearing damage is only one part of the equation, because the next piece focuses on replacement and not just cleanup. Now, cells don't simply slow down. Their energy centers begin to wear out, and when that happens, stress signals spread outward, which increases inflammation and makes the body feel older than it should. And the foods that target this directly are pomegranates, which contains a compound your gut converts into a molecule called urolithin A, which signals cells to clear out worn down mitochondria and make room for healthier, more efficient ones. In a 2019 clinical trial, adults who consumed urolithin A showed improvements in muscle endurance and mitochondrial function in just 4 weeks. That improvement reflects cleaner energy production inside your cells, which influences strength, metabolism, and how quickly age-related decline sets in. So pomegranates aren't about quick energy or surface-level benefits, but replacing worn-down parts work best when the structures around those cells stay flexible. So what if aging isn't just about energy fading, but about cells losing the flexibility they need to communicate and recover? Well, with time, cells don't just slow down. Their outer layer stiffens, signals move less efficiently, and energy production drops. And as that flexibility fades, everything downstream starts to suffer, including brain signaling, metabolism, skin quality, and recovery from training. And the food that directly supports that structure is wild-caught salmon. It provides omega-3 fatty acids that become part of the cell membrane themselves. And when those fats are present, cells communicate more smoothly, respond to stress more effectively, and maintain healthier function over time. Salmon also contains astaxanthin, an antioxidant that helps protect cells from oxidative stress, especially in the skin and brain. That's why omega-3 intake keeps showing up in human research on cardiovascular health, brain function, and mitochondrial efficiency. Omega-3s further support the body's ability to increase mitochondrial capacity, which helps sustain energy production as you age. So this isn't about chasing short-term skin fixes, but supporting the structure that lets cells stay flexible, responsive, and resilient over time. Which is why a couple of salmon meals a week can do more for how you age than the powders lying around your kitchen. But flexibility only matters if those cells are protected from constant damage. And that's where this next critical piece comes into play. Now then, what if aging speeds up not because cells are damaged, but because they lose the ability to handle stress? Well, cells simply don't wear out. What happens is that they become more rigid, communication slows down, and inflammation starts leaking into places it doesn't belong. And the good thing is that most people already own this food, but just treat it like an afterthought. And the food that helps keep cells flexible under pressure is extra virgin olive oil, which contains polyphenols and oleic acid, compounds that become part of the cell membranes and support their ability to stay fluid and responsive. In a large 2022 Harvard study, people who consumed olive oil daily had up to a 19% lower risk from heart disease and neurodegenerative conditions. And this didn't require supplements or complex protocols. But here's the information that most people miss out on. And it's that the actual temperature matters, because heat breaks down many protective compounds, which is why the olive oil linked to longevity is used raw, drizzled on food, or added after cooking. So this isn't just about adding extra fats in meals, but daily support for your cells to handle stress and communicate over time. But even protected cells can't stay young if the system controlling inflammation stays off balance. Which brings us to the last question most people never think about. What if aging isn't driven by one weak area, but by the system deciding how much inflammation reaches everything else? The issue here is that when the internal environment drifts out of balance, inflammation doesn't stay local, it spreads. And this is why two people with the same age can live similar lifestyles, yet one looks and feels years older. This is where fermented foods come in. Inside your gut lives trillions of bacteria that influence immune signaling, inflammation, and metabolic control. And when that ecosystem is unstable, those microbes send constant low-level inflammatory signals throughout the body. But when balance is restored, they produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which help repair the gut lining, regulate blood sugar, and tell the body to quiet age-related pathways. In a 2021 Stanford study, people who added fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and sauerkraut to their diet for 10 weeks saw measurable reductions across 19 inflammatory blood markers. One of those blood markers was IL-6, which researchers often use as a strong biological indicator of aging and chronic disease risk. And this didn't require extreme cleanses or a complicated protocol. It came from eating fermented foods multiple times throughout the week. So fermented foods aren't just about digestion. They help regulate the internal environment that decides how fast aging spreads in the first place, which explains why people will spend hours debating protein timing or supplements, while barely thinking about the system deciding how inflamed they'll feel for the next decade. And that's why the road to a younger body doesn't start in the mirror, but starts inside your gut. So here's the bottom line. Aging isn't just something that happens to you. And the foods we covered aren't magic, or hacks, or shortcuts, but small, boring-looking everyday choices that quietly decide whether your cells are repaired, inflamed, or break down over time. So, if this video changes the way you think about food, aging, or what actually matters long-term, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which of these surprised you the most. Till next time.